Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Alicia, and welcome to Ask Alicia and Friends. I am the founder of the Rose Composite, and this little series is where we talk with different spirits that are around in some way. and so there's a whole bunch of variety there. If you have people that you're interested in me doing an episode on, and they don't really have to be people, because today we're talking with my little hummingbird friend. And but there's a vast spectrum here. So feel free to give me either recommendations for who to connect with, or also questions you might want to ask some of the beings that we're connecting with. Just a reminder, on the third Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we do a live discussion group. Usually there's always me, but usually there's someone else we're talking to as well. So don't hesitate to come to that. Those are always really fun, and you get to interact a little bit more. Yep, if you want to sign up for those, you've got to go to calendly.com/rosecomposite. Or if you want some more information about the one-on-one sessions I do, go to roseco.co. And always follow me on Instagram, Ali Rose 359. And without further ado, let's get started. So today, I know I said our special guest is my little hummingbird friend, and I'll try and put a picture of him up here. But I've lived in this apartment like for at least 3-ish years now. And right outside my deck, there is a cute little tree, and there is a hummingbird family that lives there, and especially the mom comes in a lot, and we're going to talk to her today about a couple different things. Um, and yeah, she's already given me a lot of messages, so this is really exciting. I certainly asked for her permission. I know most of the time we're talking with dead people, dead folks of some sort, or spirits who aren't in the physical realm. So, and I wanted to ask her what her name was. I guess I never have. She says her name is Lola. And she goes, like Lolita. She's very, and she says she's Spanish. I we certainly live in the US, but she says she's of Spanish origin. And she has mostly like a gray and like brown body, but her throat is really red. And she's, a pretty standard female hummingbird. I guess I don't know how many different hummingbirds there are, but she goes, yeah, I'm like, uh, she goes, I'm the hot bitch of hummingbirds. And she has a lot of flavor in her voice and the way she's talking, and the terminology that she uses. And so she's like very sassy, and it's so fun to hear. So already a couple things that she wanted to talk about was general symbology of hummingbirds. And there was an experience a little while ago. And then the other one was about her little hummingbird hubby. So we'll just start there, and I'm just taking some notes so I remember, and kind of see where the conversation goes. So I'm excited. Definitely let me know your questions if you have any. So the first one, and she's reminding me, because remember, if you're trying to do your own exercises, oftentimes we hear things in stories, or are reminded of something that it's similar to, and it's kind of this. I guess a treasure hunt, right? So you have those stepping stones we talked about. And I had done a session with someone quite a while ago at a fair, and I'm pretty intuitive, so I kind of just start talking about stuff, and then people are like, "Oh my God, that really resonates," which I always appreciate, because it's not only validating for me, but I'm also like, "Great, I'm doing my job right." And so I was talking with this woman, and a lot of what I did in my start was as a pet psychic. And so most often people would come either wanting to talk to current or past pets. And I was talking with this woman, and she was like, "Well, I don't have any pets." And I was like, "Well, do you see like animals again and again, like the same animal in nature?" And she was like, "Oh my God, there's this hummingbird near my house all the time. And Lolita's so cute. She goes, "That's my cousin." and, so the point behind this was the hummingbird was coming to this woman to talk with her about a crystal company that she had. So she was growing and working on the crystal company, but she still had a day job. She was considering just going back to the day job and kind of shutting down all of the crystal stuff she was doing on the side. And the hummingbird kept coming back and reminding her and kind of luring her to this idea where you have to keep working on the crystals. And it's not about the crystals so much. It's much more about following your own unique life purpose and following your own divine purpose, if you will, because the message behind the hummingbird so often is that that we need to keep showing up and working on our purpose and our mission. It's not that we just do it and it's over, and certainly things all come to an end. But most of the time, it's this journey of doing it again and again and again, and growing and expanding and trying new things out and seeing kind of all the side paths that exist. And so the message from the hummingbird is to really dedicate yourself and devote yourself to that life purpose. And I'm reminded of their wings. They actually, because they flap so fast, they can't go up and down. They go in an infinity pattern, almost like an 8 on its side. And that's how they're able to go so quickly, right? They can't just go up and down. It doesn't work. They do this infinity. And even if you try that with your hand, it's way easier to do this faster than it is to do this faster. So that infinity is really representative of this eternal lifespan of our soul purpose, our divine purpose. And so even though we might just show up and do it here once, there's also this opportunity where we do it over multiple lives, right? We have these longer journeys, and sometimes we might just be reminded of something that had happened in a past life that's here to help us again. We had a past experience that we're embodying in this body, in this lifetime, as a soul to help us with our current mission, our current purpose, our current goal. Sometimes it's called dharma too. And remember, there's so many words, so many, if you just think about the number of languages, there's so many words that mean the same thing, with different vocalizations of it. So don't get too caught up on the words. Think more about the meaning behind it, because this goes back into that intuition as well. If you're wanting to develop your intuitive skills, remember that more often we're working energetically behind the scenes through these messages and through these meanings. It's not exactly, word for word, here's the direct translation. That's a very right-sided, right-minded, and I mean the right side of your brain way of thinking, where the left side of your brain thinks much more in symbols and colors and stories and feelings. So that's the side where you really want to embody if you're hoping to receive some of this knowledge, some of this message. And so if you're seeing hummingbirds again and again, consider that you might be wanting to kind of rededicate or dedicate more fully to your life purpose. And that could be a desire, an interest, things like that. So like for me, dancing is one of the things I absolutely love. And of course, I love doing this work too. This work is so meaningful for other people, but dancing really allows me to move a lot of energy, and they're interconnected because I couldn't do this without dancing, and vice versa, right? So she wants to talk about a little story, and I feel like this just dovetails from our last session. We were talking so much about death and endings, and some of that ending, like that life cycle ending, so that a new one can start, right? Because any death is significatory of a rebirth, right? It's that saying that like when a door closes, a window opens. And that almost even sounds like like really we're talking, and it's not necessarily reincarnation. It's that energy, it can only transform and change. Energy is uh, never really dies. It just transmutes into another form, right? And so if you think about that in terms of your soul energy, very often your soul was somewhere else, and then came into this body, and as you die your soul goes somewhere else again, right? It's not created or destroyed, it's just transmuted into another form. And so the other kind of mental image that comes up is, I want to say they're called like mother trees or something, or like nurture trees, something like that. Um, but when a tree falls in the forest, especially the really big ones, oftentimes as it's decomposing, it has so much beautiful, rich minerals and nutrients for other plants around it. And so pretty soon, some moss might start growing, and then other plants, and eventually maybe even another tree grows out of there. But the tree that's fallen itself, sure, that tree may be dead, but all of a sudden it's feeding its nutrients into all that is around it, and this new life form that ultimately arises from the nutrients of the life that has passed. So with that, Lolita sharing her husband, her hummingbird husband, actually passed away, and this was kind of bittersweet for me. So I have a little cat monkey, and I know last session we talked to my childhood cat Figaro, but Monkey is my current cat, and he one day was on the porch, and I heard this big thud. And I got outside, and he had apparently caught this hummingbird out of thin air. And by the time I got there, he was already, unfortunately, had passed away. Got one solid teeth to the neck, and was just sort of done. And um, Lolita is talking about, and she's relating to me as well, because I've had that grief of having a significant other pass away too. And Lolita's really talking about this idea of moving forward after a significant loss, a significant change, but specifically a significant loss in your life. And she's speaking of some of her, she's it's bittersweet. So she's saying that she's really mourned that death and has moved on. And she brings Queen Victoria in too. I know that was a part of Queen Victoria's story too, when her husband Prince Albert passed away. Um, and and so Lolita is talking about how now that her husband has passed away, kind of the dust settled, and she talks about the finches a lot. There's all kinds of birds where I live, but the finches live in the, I don't know if they live there, but they definitely hang out in the tree a lot there, because she's saying they don't, and she's showing me the other tree that they live in. But they fly around and they float around a lot, and that's so cute. She goes, "They're my lady friends." Because she is talking more overwhelmingly about this resurgence of the feminine and of feminine energy. And it's much more about um, moving with the flow of the universe, and about getting into that divine rhythm. And I'm almost reminded of like the ocean waves, or like the moon cycles, right? It's this divine rhythm that exists, and she's saying that she's been able to like re-embody that, and she feels so strongly because before, where she had such a strong relationship with her hummingbird hubby, now she's talking about the finches and her relationship with me, and she's like pointing to other, there's like some squirrels and some other animals that she really likes. And she's also showing, there's a lot of like crows and ravens and things like that circle around my apartment. That sounds a little intense, but I sort of live on a hill, and so they're circling around the whole hill, and where you can see from my apartment, it looks like they're just floating around me, which maybe they are, because she says, "Yep, it's you." But she's saying initially she was quite scared of them, and um, that because they're friends with me and I'm friends with her, that, it's kind of like even if you don't really like somebody, but they're friends of yours, you're going to be like nice enough to them anyways. It's like that. And so she's talking about how they look out for her because they do. They have it's like a whole network where you can see them in different trees quite far away, and they're cawing and communicating between each other. But then it's like this whole web, and you can tell it goes for miles and miles, and it's honestly pretty cool. And they're kind of showing me like a phone system, or what was the Scotland Yard? I think it was in the Dalmatians, but all the dogs have like the communication system where they go and talk through the houses, and it's almost like a phone tree, right? Go tell your neighbor type thing. And she's saying that they have this communication system where they're able to share messages from broad areas. And so she's saying that's like how she was able to share, and she's like equating it to like if you moved states away from your family, that she's like able to share messages through the crows and the ravens about what's going on with her to her other hummingbird friends. Yeah, and she's saying they're coming back together, and so it sounds like, and she's saying she's not moving, but they're moving to her. They're coming to her, so she's going to have some new hummingbird friends, and it's very sweet. There's like, because there's a couple of families of hummingbirds that live around here, and she's talking about how um, they're gonna have like new babies in the spring, like new little hummingbird babies. And she's like, I'm so excited. They're so cute. I love them so much. And she says that she has hummingbird babies too, but she goes like, they're all grown. She's like a grandmother hummingbird. And especially now that her husband is dead, she's like, no more for me. Um, but she says she's like really grateful because she's much more independent now. And she does acknowledge that, a lot of the other forest creatures look after her. But she also acknowledges that she's really grown into her own power in that way, and she's encouraging us all to grow into our power of some sort. So this morning she did give me a little nudge to do a card reading. I have a Celtic Oracle divination deck. I think it's the Celtic Oracle. Oh, here, let me tell you the exact name. It's the Celtic Tree Oracle. This one here, if you can see it. And I really love this one, and so she's wanting to, because part of this is to also give you guys some lessons on how to do this yourselves if you so choose. And I am personally, well, I guess maybe I am, because she's saying you do have Celtic origin. I've honestly never done like a 23andMe or something like that. My whole family did, and they had a lot of like English and Welsh, and like my known history, there's a lot of Polish people, a lot of Scandinavian people. Um, and so I always joke like anyone who's really pale and blonde is my heritage. So she is talking to um, like this connection that I have with the Celtic Druids specifically. Um, and she wants me to go through the reading this morning because she says it's really for all of us. And also that she wants me to share this story. So I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for quite a while, and they had like a Celtic museum there that I don't know all the history, but it was built and replicated like a real Celtic castle or Irish castle. I think it was like an Irish center, so maybe I'm not sure exactly the intricacies of those differences. But they would play bagpipes, and I lived so close to it. You could hear the bagpipes playing very often. And I remember I went in there, they had a whole library in there, and they had a replica of the Book of Kells in there, and all kinds of really like interesting Celtic heritage stuff. And so I thought it was so funny. It was actually in this apartment when it happened, but she's telling me she was kind of like helping me remember that as a part of my story. And obviously, at some point, I got this divination deck of the Celtic Tree Oracle. So it's a recurring pattern, right? So like right off the bat, like look at if you are continually influenced by reoccurring symbols, definitely take a closer look at that, because there's some kind of message that's trying to come through for you there. The other one I get a lot is I have a lot of cats, especially like Egyptian cats and lions, and those are often um, symbols of strength or symbols of being able to go between the two realms, right? So a black cat, kind of what you think of as that like stereotypical Egyptian kind of skinny cat. I'm thinking of like the artwork where its face kind of comes out and back in, has like the long neck, are often thought to be protectors, and that they would go um, between the worlds, between the realms of dead and living. And so I was in my apartment, and I've been doing this for quite a while now, but somehow I still am surprised every day. And I was like, oh my God, I hear bagpipes. I'm hearing bagpipes right now. And I went over to the wall, and because I didn't believe it. I was like, no, there can't be bagpipes here. That's ridiculous, right? I live in an apartment. Like, what is happening? And so I remember like I actually like went over to the wall and like listened, and I was like, are there really bagpipes out there? And it was so funny because like I certainly was hearing bagpipes, but it was an intuitive symbol. And it really had nothing to do with um, where I moved to. So like the joke was that like the volume was the same, and I was like, okay, no one's really playing bagpipes, even though I'm getting this intuitive hit about bagpipes. So do know that sometimes, sometimes they're so subtle that you are aware of them, but don't necessarily differentiate between what is physical and non-physical. So along those lines, the reading from this morning out of the tree deck was I pulled two cards, and I'll speak more in the English terms. This deck is really good about sharing all the Celtic terms and a lot of the folklore and or poems behind that divination system. But the cards I pulled were the willow and the sea. And so the willow is number 4, and the sea is kind of this enmeshed. It's made to look almost like a weaving of fabrics, right? And you can almost think of it like plaid, right? So and I'm going to read my notes because that's what I do. And if you do, and there you go. That's part of the lesson. If you and please know that I am just channeling openly Lolita. This is, certainly I'm chiming in with my own comments, but this is primarily Lolita sharing these with you through me, which I'm so grateful for. I can see her outside right now, and I'll try and put a picture of her up here too, if I can figure out how to edit the video that way. And she is wanting to kind of remind us, if you do have either tarot decks or oracle decks or whatever you have around, and you don't even necessarily have to go get something, you can turn just a basic card deck with like king, queen, jack, ace into a tarot deck. If you search it online, you'll find something that talks about how the different suits align with the different uh, I don't really, but like one is the swords, one's the cups, one's the wands, and one is the coins or pentacles, depending on what kind of card deck you're using. There's so many different varieties too. So know that like pick the one that's right for you, right? There are the same way in our world that there are unlimited possibilities. These decks are really just tools for us to use. It's not there is no wrong answer. and you're always on the right path. But to write down, if you do have like a regular practice, maybe you pull a card every week or a card every day, or do a more in-depth reading and whatnot. But to have a little, like preferably a notebook if you want to like keep writing them down again and again. But to in some way have kind of a log of the messages you're getting, and then every so often, and I'll say usually it's when the moon is going from full back down to a new moon, when it's waning, where we do a lot of reflection. And so that's always a good time to kind of look through and see what's come up in the past month or so. I hope you guys know too, when I'm burping, it's because I'm passing energy. and and so just know that if you do ever engage in some of this work and you start, burping is just one example. But we have all kinds of, our body is impacted by the energy around us. So if like someone ever walks into the room and you like start to feel like a little dizzy or something like that, know that that is probably an energetic response to what's going on. So the willow and the sea, the willow card really represents the femininity and healthy femininity. It's represented by the month of February, and that's when a fire festival occurs for the goddess Bridget. And I don't know if goddess is the right word, but I'd call her an ascended master for sure. But very much so a wise woman. She is embodied by this understanding of sacred wisdom, and she's also representative as being a seer. And so she is thought to be able to see symbols. And that's where too, in that area, we always think of wishing wells whenever you like throw coins into fountains or things like that. That originated in that area where wishing wells. They were normal wells, and some of them were thought to have magical powers, and that was the wishing well, right? And we're reminded too, femininity is so. Uh, what would you call it? So symbolized by water. Water is very emotional. It's moving constantly. It flows through things. And this is what that sacred femininity is like. It's consistently moving. And so that was very aligned with the second card that I pulled, which was more the sea card. And there's this story about the sea god, and he has a couple different names, but I always like Mananan, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But he goes out in search of the white goddess. He's searching for this woman he loves. And part of the representative of this card is that just possibly you may need to go travel to embody what it is that you're desiring, right? To go embody your purpose and to follow that life path that exists for you. And remember, this reading, I kind of thought it was about me, but Lolita was the one who told me to do this morning. And right now she's saying it is for me, but it's also for all of you. And so do remember, if you're in my orbit, if you're in my realm, a lot of times there are these similarities. We are mirrors for each other. So if you're hearing this, hopefully there is some meaning or some lesson to take out of it for you. And part of the C card is recognizing that there's a level of timing when we have access to some of this secret knowledge, right? So just how the willow is represented by Bridget, the seer, who sees things that are beyond what the masses have awareness of. The sea card really brings in this idea that as the tides rise and fall, oftentimes when the tides are lower, you're able to see things that maybe you wouldn't be able to see when the high tides exist, right? So it's kind of reminding you of this timelessness with the rhythm of being able to not only be patient, but be sure, like when you have those calls, when you have that intuition, follow that timing, because there's this sacredness in when and if you're thinking about it uh, more applicably to this day and age, there's a sequence of when portals are open and when they're closed. It's the same way we have the moon cycles or things like that, when even our days have cycles, right? The sun is up and the sun sets and we see the night. And these are really important to understand, because you can only have access to certain pieces of knowledge during different times, and they're all related to different things. It's not like every night I have access to this. It might be influenced by a certain time of the month or a certain time of the year. The equinoxes come to mind, things like that. So there are all different types of different representations of this, I should say. And I love that idea that is to fulfill your dream's eye. And so it's this saying where, um, only you have this awareness of what your dream is. It's not like someone shows up and they're like, okay, Alicia, today you dreamed of this. Here's your homework. Go live your life purpose. Like, wouldn't that be nice, right? It really is something that comes internally from us. And so you are the only one who has access to that dream in your mind's eye. And you're the only person who can fulfill it. There's a reason you have those desires, there's a reason you have those visions and that awareness. And so it's speaking to that secret knowledge as well, because only you are aware of your own soul's knowledge at its deepest meaning and deepest symbology. So it's there's this level of really honoring the knowledge and the information that is available to you, that you can see, because everyone has different knowledge and information secretly available to them, and it's only when we share this knowledge that we're able to have a broader awareness, right? Um, so the story goes, like, as the sea god is looking for the white goddess, he speaks to the cranes, and so he says that the cranes are sharing these symbols that represent the different trees that make up the Celtic tree oracle. They're represented by numbers, and then they have some other symbols in them. So, like we talked about, the willow is number 4, but the sea is this weaving of the ways. So, and you could equate that to um, almost like the major and minor arcana in a traditional tarot deck. Sorry, the major arcana. The minor arcana are going to be the numbers, right? So number 4, the willow, would be a minor arcana, and the weaving pattern symbol would be the major arcana, which would be something like the priestess or the moon. And yeah, so beautiful. Those just happen to represent a lot of like what we're talking about too. So like the moon would be kind of that secret knowledge, that shadow, that night work, that night journey that exists. And the priestess speaks very highly to the femininity and really doing the work, and also having this divine connection to this secret knowledge. And so remember too, like the willow grows near water more often than not. Like water is such a key part here, and a key message. Water oftentimes represents purity. It represents cleansing. It can, put out fires for sure. And I mean that not only really, but also much more metaphorically. So if you're having, a difficult time with a lot of emotional stuff, Lolita is kind of speaking to her husband dying. Maybe you want to take a lot of baths and really cleanse yourself of some of those hurtful emotions, and just kind of take extra care of yourself, and nurture yourself while you're passing this energy through through your soul body. Whew, that was a good one. So just remember, you're on the path, you are aligned. This is where you're supposed to be. And Lolita, I want to throw it right back to you. She's telling me this is going to be a shorter video than usual. We don't have a whole lot more to talk about. She wants me to give you all an exercise. What is our exercise today? It is really just talking through, maybe journaling, whatever kind of modality you like to use, but asking yourself some of these questions about what kind of patterns you see, what kind of symbols you're seeing reoccurring, and how do you think those relate with your divine life path at this moment in time. It's really helpful to kind of start keeping that log, like I talked about, so that you can have this record of going back and kind of seeing those transitions and understanding those winds and how they move through the time that we live here, right? We are physical bodies that live in time. And that's, again, like we talked about before, that's not true in the soul realms, in the spirit realms. Time does not exist over there. So here it does, and it's a helpful dynamic, a helpful tool to really keep track of your growth as you change and develop. And you're going to ask yourself those questions. You're going to ask yourself a little bit about like reconnecting with what your divine life purpose is, and know that as much as that can overlap with how you make your income, it doesn't necessarily have to. You can have a divine life purpose that is completely fulfilled and also another path where you are making your income. Sometimes they are interconnected. So if that's true for you, embody that and go for it. But if it's not true for you, don't feel like you need to shift into, make changes. We're not trying to make changes right now. We're just kind of trying to observe and understand better where these patterns exist. And once you have that observation, that's when you can kind of start to do a little evaluation and see, well, can I better embody this in some way, or am I already embodying it to my full potential? So she wants to talk about cats a little bit too. Obviously she's pretty pissed because my cat killed her husband, and I'm very sorry for that. She, is being very kind. She knows that, I had no part in that. I let the cat outside. It was, an accident on my part and very purposeful on her part. She's speaking to, and I'm reminded through like a couple different scenarios. She's talking to how she had told her husband, not to fool around near the balcony, and she was able to warn him against that action, and he disregarded her her input, her premonition. And I want to just remind you to really lean into those feelings you have that have no proof behind them. And this is kind of the ultimate definition of faith. It's in doing something and believing something and knowing something so deeply and having no proof of it at all until it occurs, right? And so a very healthy feminine would be able to foresee some of these things like Lolita did and share that information with others around us. Whereas the healthy, like the masculine side, they're much more, as and this is one definition, they are much more physical in the physical realm, where like the feminine is much more emotional. And if you want to put that into like the sides of the brain, the masculine side is the right side and the feminine side is the left side. It's the emotions, it's the watery energy, it's the that divine sacredness that cannot be seen. It's that eternal self. Whereas the masculine side is all about action, and you can think of it as like building houses and whatnot, and kind of doing very much so like the physical work. And regardless of how you identify yourself, do know that you have both of these sides within you, and usually one is just stronger than the other. One is more naturally attuned to you, and naturally attuned to your skill set, but there is always a time to use each half. And and it's almost like being right-handed, right? You're much stronger on your right side, or if you're left-handed, on your left side. And one isn't right or wrong. I know people used to have these ridiculous views that, if you were left-handed, there was, something wrong with you and the devil had your soul or something like that. And um, all of that is so like ridiculously outdated and trauma-based um, influences, right? So there's a couple messages here. One, like never let anybody tell you that you are wrong, because if it feels right to you in that context, it is right for you. And you should follow that guidance because it is aligned and right. Like we don't want to, well, and actually, yeah, the Bhagavad Gita does come up where Arjuna is told to, go into this war against his family members, and to ultimately kill them in order to um, kind of save the masses, if you will, as he's following Brahman's guidance. And it's um, it's bittersweet because, that's an extreme example in a story. I'm not suggesting that you go take action similar to that, but it's about having that faith ahead of time that even when something does not make sense, if it feels right and if you have that divine knowledge within you, however it comes through, it's so imperative to honor that and to follow that divine knowledge. And this is how you continue to stay on your path of divinity. This is how you continue to stay on that life purpose path, and that path of living your most fulfilled life, living that life of your dream's eye, right? Because it doesn't, and not that it doesn't make sense, it always makes sense in hindsight, but oftentimes you hear things and they just don't, uh, they seem very odd uh, in the beginning. And so, like one story I like to share, things were not going well for me. Well, and we don't even need to share this. That's so nice. But basically, just really opening your mind to letting some of those messages marinate until they make sense to you. Uh, so I'm so grateful to have Lolita here. I'm grateful to be able to share with you today. She just wants to like tell you guys how much she loves you, and she's so cute. She's outside like right now, being adorable, and she's really bringing in a message about longevity and about knowing that you are you can like get through anything. She's saying that no grief is too strong, where you should divert from your life's path and your soul's path, really is what I should say, because there is this rhyme to the reason when you kind of zoom out and see it from this broader scale, and there's a very beautiful meaning when you start to see it from that wider view. And she's so grateful for this opportunity to talk with us. She's sharing her gratitude for me, and thank you so much. I appreciate it. Because I really I was planning on doing this session with a different being today, and I just saw her out there, and she's like, nope, it's my turn. I want to be there, and I'm going to do it. She wants me just to remind you of the color red. Red is, you can think of it as your root chakra. It is so, oh my God, and she's like, you gotta show them. We have this beautiful, it's almost Christmas time, this beautiful carnation, not carnation, I always want to call them carnations. Um, I know what this is called, I promise. Poinsettia, thank you. Thank you so much. But yeah, she's really talking to the red because it is this, not only does she have the red throat, but it's really this energy of being safe and secure no matter what happens. And, she's speaking to how her husband died and he was such a big help. But now she's speaking to how, on that broader scale, it allowed her this lesson of independence, this lesson of rebirth and regrowth. And now she says she's one of the few birds that knows all the other birds and some of the squirrels and mice and things like that. But she's saying that and she goes, most of my friends, most of her hummingbird friends are, they only hang out with other hummingbirds. And she's very grateful because she says that she gets to hang out with so many different species, and that she used to be kind of scared of that, and she's even pointing to the cat saying like, look what happened, you should be scared sometimes, but she wants you to then kind of understand those nuances of being able to um, discern when you should be cautious, and she's saying all the time you need to follow that divine guidance, but sometimes your guidance may say that things are safe when your history says it's not, and she wants you to know that no matter what, you are always safe and secure. You are this eternal being living and having a experience on this earth in this body, for this time, and to really use it to the best it could be. So that is just so exciting and so beautiful. And to really, you know, do your own, if you see other spirits around, if you, see other animals around or whatnot, use that discernment. But if it's safe, they could be your new friends. And so, with that, I am so grateful to all of you, my friends. Thank you to Lolita. Thank you to me. Thank you to all those involved today. Thank you to all those who are watching. Please, if you think of, other beings you want to connect with, or spirits or whatnot, or questions that you'd like to ask them as we're going through here, give me a little shout out, send me a comment or whatnot. And if you want to join our live sessions, they are third Wednesdays at 6 p.m. You can go to calendly.com/rosecomposite to sign up for those. You can sign up for all the other sessions we offer as well. And then if you want some more information about me and the services I'm currently offering, go to roseco.co. And I certainly have not all, I have a lot of the social medias, but I will say I hang out on Instagram the most. So my Instagram handle there is AliRose359. And yeah, give me a like, give me a follow. I'd love to connect with you and see how you're doing, see what's up. And, that's really the underlying message from Lolita, is to like go connect with your community and be better friends with your friends. And like she's kind of pointing to all the strangers you don't know yet, right? So if you connect, if you resonate, please don't hesitate to reach out. I always love hearing from y'all. And yeah, have a good day. Lots of love.